Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 2015 film Goosebumps, aka Goose Dumps down your fucking leg. Yeah, just take a giant dump, steaming dump right down your leg till it dribbles out into your shoes, and your feet just squish right into the stinky, steamy shit. And that's what this movie is. That fucking dump that just ran right down your fucking leg. I know it's not a good image, but that's really what I thought this movie was. It's exactly what I thought it was. I thought Goosebumps was shit. Um, I wasn't expecting it to be good, considering that I was totally against the concept from the beginning. I like Goosebumps. I grew up reading the books. I grew up watching the TV show. And when I heard it was first announced, I was somewhat excited. Then I found out it's just some Jumanji Page Master clone with, the typical sort of story where all the Goosebumps characters are going to be shoved into one movie and they're going to pop out of the books and come into the real world. I was like, really? That's the best you could come up with? You couldn't come up with new stories? Like an anthology film for kids, for teenagers with new um, horror stories that are safe for kids and teenagers to watch, like the Willies or something? Nope, we can't do that. We gotta just be Jumanji again with Jack Black. And I was like, oh. And I was still interested because I'm a big Goosebumps fan. So I'm like, maybe it might not suck. Then I saw the trailer and then bad CGI werewolves and Jack Black overacting his ass off. And I was just like, oh, God. And then I saw the film and it was worse than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be like, it's going to be harmless, but not very good. But, one of those movies that, like, you could watch it once and that's it. But no, this was absolutely painful to sit through. I mean, and as a fan of Goosebumps, it was even harder to watch because this was lazy. It was so lazy and half-assed. And even with the concept, which has been there, done that, there was still some sort of hope here. But the film completely fucking wastes all of it. Like it just makes everything hopeless in the end because of the fact that it decides to write some of the most pathetic and obnoxious and shitty characters imaginable. Your lead, played by Dylan Minnette, is a total he's just a total black hole of charisma, personality, whatever. That there's nothing about his character that makes him remotely likable, and the film doesn't even try to make him likable. They try to be like, hey, he's just a good-looking guy, and his dad died, and he's a little bit bummed out. And then he has a crush on this girl who is believed to be Jack Black's daughter, played by Odeya Rush, who plays Hannah, and this character is based on a character from the book The Ghost Next Door, because you find out that this is a character that isn't really technically real. She's just a figment of R.L. Stine's imagination, played by Jack Black. And that character was the most interesting character in the entire movie, and she's not even real. She's a fictional character that was brought into the real world because R.L. Stine was lonely. And then the backstory you get for Jack Black's R.L. Stine makes him sound like a fucking jerk. He doesn't sound like an ass. Where he was just lonely as a kid, he had allergies, he was picked on, and so he decided to start creating, stories, and he decided to create imaginary friends for himself. And in the process, he brought a bunch of these Goosebumps monsters and stuff to life and terrorized his town and terrorized people in it. I'm like, this guy's a fucking sicko. Like, really? That's fucking how many people did he kill? Like, seriously, like what happened in this small town he lived in? Like that, and then but he made up for it because he caught all the creatures in books. I'm like, no, he still brought this fucking horrors to life, and then was. I'm sorry, it's not one of those old redemption stories. I'm like, he's still an asshole. Why the hell should I give a shit about what happens to R.L. Stine? And what kind of person comes up with imaginary friends that are giant blobs and giant praying mantises and abominable snowmen and pumpkin people and a dummy, a talking dummy, and all of its other stuff, and a haunted mask? Like, that's just a stupid explanation to me for why these books exist and why there's all of these creatures and all these moments that were in the Goosebumps books that come into the real world in this movie. So anyway, Goosebumps is a film directed by Rob Letterman, who I honestly would give him an F. I would give him a fail. Did not pass when it comes to his direction for this movie. It was flat, it was uninspired, and it really didn't add anything to the film. Um, there's nothing about it that was at all memorable or stood out to me. It's written by Scott Alexander and Larry Krasarewski. Well, I think they all, for the most part, did a shitty job. Starring Jack Black, overacting his ass off as a jackass of a character, R.L. Stine. He also voices Slappy the Dummy, and he actually did a pretty good job. And Slappy was one of the few things about the movie I didn't mind because I had fun with Slappy. It was nice to see Slappy again, and I wish Slappy won. I wish Slappy killed everyone. That Cushy killed all the lead characters. They were that obnoxious and that shitty to me. And the characters not being likable is one of the big reasons why I hated it. I hated this movie because of the fact that I didn't have characters that I rooted for or I gave a shit about. So then it made the movie a boring waste of space and time, and it was just nothing but eye candy with no scares, not much originality in terms of the story. And even if it wasn't that original in terms of story, I'd be okay with it if I had likable characters. But I didn't have that, so then I was just stuck with shit. That's it. All I had was shit in my hands. So anyway, Dylan Minnette is a terrible actor. He cannot act. He's a walking 2x4. He's that wooden. Odeya Rush is okay as Hannah Stein, but she doesn't have anything to do. Jack Black is, like I said, he's just over the top, overacting to the point that it's just cringe inducing. And his character is kind of a jackass, and is not likable. Amy Ryan, I thought she did okay as Zach's mother, but she has some cringe-inducing moments, but it's due to the script, not really her fault. Ryan Lee, I hated as Champ, Zach's new friend. He was so annoying. He was every annoying nerd stereotype from every movie, TV show imaginable rolled up into one unholy combination. He has a smile that makes you want to punch his teeth out, and his personality is just as annoying and just as obnoxious. Oh my God, I really wish this character would have died halfway through the movie, and I would not have had any issue. But no, they make this character a main character. They try so hard to make him cool near the end. I mean, this is the same character who's like screaming like a girl and shit. And then by the end of the movie, he fucking jumps on the werewolf who wore tennis shoes, and then he gets the hot chick. He gets the pretty much the homecoming queen because he saves her life and her boyfriend runs away like a bitch. So he jumps on top of the werewolf. She's like, "You saved my life. I'm gonna make out with you." I'm like, "Yeah, but that fucking little cute twat gets the girl. Fuck you, movie. Fuck off. Go fuck yourself, Goosebumps. Goosebumps. You have Jillian Bell, who I do like as an actress, who is absolutely atrocious in this. I think it's just her character. It's just an unlikable character. And her humor, whatever writing she was given, whatever jokes she was given, they sucked. So she plays a Zach's aunt, who then falls in love with R.L. Stine. She's the aunt of our main character, Zachary, who's fucking is a wooden board. He's teen plank. You even have talented comedians like Ken Marino, who was in a pretty decent direct-to-video movie called Bad Milo. And I remember Ken Marino from his work on The State on MTV. And I know he's a lot better than he is in this, but he's not terrible because he has a worthless role. He just plays a guy, a teacher at the school, has the hots for Zach's mom. That's it. He has like 2 or 3 lines of dialogue. He does nothing to do. So the cast, for the most part, is pretty, doesn't really make that much of an impact. None of the performances are that great or that phenomenal or standouts, and a lot of it's due to the poor screenplay. There's a score by Danny Elfman, which I thought it was just a poor imitation of Danny Elfman, and it's by Danny Elfman. I was shocked when I saw Danny Elfman's name at the end credit. Because like when I was listening to the score earlier, I'm like, man, this it sounds like they hired some guy to make a score that was as similar to a Danny Elfman score as they possibly could because they couldn't afford Danny Elfman. And then at the end credits, Danny Elfman. I'm like, oh my God, I know you can do better than this, Danny. This is just this is have really half-assed. It sounded like he just took scores from Men in Black and Beetlejuice and just put them in a blender and just poured it in a glass and said, here you go. This is what you got for the score for Goosebumps. But I don't blame him for not putting that much effort into this movie because it doesn't look like anybody put that much effort into this film. From the screenwriters, from the actors, from the directing, from the editing, from the cinematography. It's just the film doesn't even try to be scary either. I mean, it's based on Goosebumps, and I know some of the stories were silly and goofy, but there's no scare factor. There's nothing scary about this movie. It doesn't even try. I mean, you want an example of a teen horror film that deals with monsters. It has teenagers in it fighting monsters that come into the real world. Watch this movie. Fuck Goosebumps. Watch the Monster Squad. I mean, that's the thing. There are so many other better movies I can watch that deal with the similar concepts this film has, that do the that deal with the same concepts and the same story and do it so much better than this movie because they actually put effort into it. They put effort into creating likable characters, and they also are better paced. The Monster Squad is only about an hour and 20 something minutes. It's 82 minutes long. It's one of the most entertaining films I can think of. It's fast paced, it's fun, and it's got all these great practical effects by Stan Winston. And even the ending of this movie is similar to the Monster Squad, where you have a black hole that sucks up all the monsters. But instead of it being, a gem that's sucking all the monsters in, it's like a story. And of course, there's another movie you can go watch instead that deals with, things that pop out of something and people have to deal with it in a small town. Watch Jumanji. Jumanji dealt with all this stuff way better. And then now what? This movie was a decent hit. Sony's announced that they're working on a sequel. I don't know how they're going to do a sequel. I guess there's a little bit because there was a sequel bait ending, which was a twist, and I do understand there was a good amount of R.L. Stine books that did have twists in them. But it doesn't really set itself up very well for a sequel. There was a sequel that happened and make it kind of pointless that this movie even existed, that the events even happened in the first place. It's like, hey, we stopped the monsters, but they're back, what are we gonna do now? What are they gonna send them to? A different dimension? But yeah, it just seemed like a film and it was boring. It was so boring. Like even in the beginning, it starts off terribly, with just this just really dull, lame first few minutes, and the there's a school assembly, and uh, Zach's mom is making bad jokes, talking about twerking and shit, and then some kid makes a fart noise in the audience. I'm like, a fart joke? A fart joke? Really? You might as well just be farting in my face then. Seriously. I mean, fuck. It stinks anyway. Movie stinks. It really does. It smells like rotting feet. But hey, I mean, it's just the biggest problem though for me is the lack of likable characters and the story. The story is unengaging. I don't give a shit. I don't care about R.L. Stine's plight because he was an asshole. Like he's the reason why these monsters exist. I guess he caught them, but I mean, but he created all these monsters from his imagination because I wanted friends. Well, you could have, I don't know, created something that's not a monster to be friends with. You know, when I was a kid, I didn't have monsters for imaginary friends. I had Ninja Turtles. I mean, for fuck's sake. What kind of kid creates monsters as imaginary friend? I mean, he must, unless he's a fucking psychopath or something. There's not very many clever jokes. It tries to be funny, but it fails. It falls flat on its ass majority of the time. There's a couple references to Stephen King that I thought were kind of funny, but that's it. There's nothing memorable about the film. You got giant monsters, CGI monsters running around. Whoop-de fucking do. I can see that in a million other Sci-Fi Channel movies. I'm not impressed with your giant praying mantis. You see the blob that ate everyone, and it looks like shit. It's CGI, and it literally was just, it looked like just pink, petroleum jelly. It looked like shit that you'd be using, to help pleasure your significant other, to make the sex more pleasurable. It did. It looked like that shit. There was like that new whatever KY jelly or something that like it's meant to pleasure both both partners. It just looked terrible. And I'm like, this is what the Blob would look like in a Blob remake nowadays. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see another Blob remake. They did one in 1988, and you're not going to do better than that. So yeah, and of course you have the stupid lawn gnomes, and then you have other Goosebumps characters that don't really get any screen time. You have a climax where there's all these monsters, but they're just standing around. They don't do shit. They attack the school, but there's like lame shit, like a bunch of toy robots who shoot lasers and say, "We come in peace," and you go in pieces, asshole. I don't remember little toy robots shooting lasers from any of the books or the shows, the episodes of the Goosebumps show that I watched, or generic aliens that just freeze people, or clowns. I mean, I don't remember that. I mean, there's some zombies, but they don't do anything. They're just rotting window dressing. They show up, come out of the ground in a graveyard scene, and they do nothing. They don't attack anybody. They don't grab anybody. The kids just escape from the graveyard really quickly. They show up again near the end in the climax at the school, and they still do nothing. They just stand there like, "Ugh." That's it. They do nothing. They add nothing to the film. There's all these other monsters that show up that Slappy brings to life, and they do nothing. They don't do anything. You have generic CGI bees instead that you get to see attack our wooden lead, who was more wooden than the dummy. Really? Jack Black had delivered a better performance as Slappy, voicing the dummy, than our lead Dylan Minnette did. But yeah, as you can see, I did not like this movie. But I really don't know what else to say about the film. I mean, the plot is just, as I said, it's a mix of the Page Master and Jumanji. It said it's Goosebumps books and Goosebumps characters that come out. There's a ton of CGI. There's no practical effects whatsoever, and it takes me out of the film sometimes. I'm not that excited, and the fact that I don't like any of the characters for the most part doesn't help either. I mean, there's a scene where the Abominable Snowman comes out and attacks them, and they trap him in a book, and then Slappy gets out and starts releasing more of the Goosebumps characters into the real world. You have the lawn gnomes that come out, which was a kind of decent scene, but I mean it's not anything I've seen it done better in Gremlins, the Gremlins 2, that same sort of sequence. And you have the giant praying mantis, you got the invisible boy, you got the plot that ate everyone, they save for the end, and they need to find a way to get all these monsters back into the book, so they decide to write one big story so it could suck them all up into it. And then there's like one twist in the plot that I was like, okay, I actually like that, where you find out that Hannah's not real, that she's a figment of R.L. Stein's imagination. It's a book that he wrote because he was lonely again. So he created her. And Zach falls in love with her, and they don't have any chemistry, but okay. And she becomes, near the end, when all these monsters are getting sucked up, like straight out of the Monster Squad, they she basically tells them, you have to let me go because, I have to go, you need to move on. And so basically what the screenplay does is it makes her a living embodiment of our main character's grief and loss over his father. And he lets her go, and therefore he lets his grief go, and he moves on with his life. And I was like, okay, I don't mind that. I like that. But then the fucking script fucks it up, and then the movie just completely unravels all the goodwill that it brought, that it built up with that story, with that element, with that plot element, in a matter of like 30 seconds. It's just like, oh, that's nothing, really. Because Jack Black writes another book and brings her back and burns the book, and now she's a part of the permanent world, and she can go live with Zach happily ever after. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Such a fucking cop-out. The one moment I thought it was kind of interesting, and actually pretty ballsy. You were like, nope, nope, nope. That was completely we're just gonna make that completely pointless because it's exactly what it was. How is he really moving on if the thing that helped him move on comes back? I'm just saying. That, and you pull at people's heartstrings, and then you just fucking drop the ball because you didn't really have the balls to begin with to go through with that story, with that plot point. The Monster Squad does that better too. That would be like if in the end, where Frankenstein is getting sucked into a black hole, and he's, going, and he doesn't want to leave because he loves, Phoebe and the kids. And he's all like, Phoebe, bye, don't go, Frankenstein, don't go. And then he says goodbye and gets sucked up into the black hole and waves goodbye. I mean, and he goes, and that's still that's still sad. And then what if he just came back? What if all of a sudden Frankenstein shows up again before the end credits and everything's fine? He's like, hey guys, and I'd be like, bullshit. I mean, come on. What kind of fucking ending is that? And then, of course, it ends with the sequel bait, the Invisible Boy. They didn't get him. He's writing, he's typing on the typewriter about a new story, The Invisible Boy's Revenge. And then end credits. One of the best things about the movie was the end credits, where they showed in like an animated style. They showed the covers from the Goosebumps movies. Not Goosebumps movies. I mean, from the Goosebumps books coming to life. And that was fun to see as a Goosebumps fan, but I almost maybe wish they just made an animated movie instead of a live action one. But then again, it's still, I mean, even if they did this animated, the plot still sucks. The characters still suck. And the writing still sucks. Making it animated isn't going to make it better. But anyway, yeah. I don't know what else to say about this movie except it's lazy, it's lifeless, it's half-assed, it has shitty characters, the direction is just as lifeless as the story and the script, and I don't get why this gets the pass. It has over 70% Rotten Tomatoes. I see some posts, on IMDb saying that it's an instant classic. It's better than Jumanji. How and why? How is this better than Jumanji? Jumanji has tons of likable characters. You have the kids who are actually surprisingly likable kid characters, and they actually can act. You have Robin Williams' character, who you really feel for. You have Bonnie Hunt's character, who's who's really, who's a solid character, who has a connection to the story, to the plot, and a connection to the character played by Robin Williams. Oh, and guess what? They're remaking that movie. Yeah, they're remaking Jumanji. I remember reading about that. A remake of Jumanji this Christmas. Thanks. Merry Christmas. Here's a remake of Jumanji. What the hell is up with this Christmas a trend lately of Merry Christmas. Here's a remake, a reboot of a movie you never asked for. What? But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But they already remade Jumanji. It was called Goosebumps. But anyway, I mean, is that why they're doing it? Because Goosebumps was successful. Surprisingly, Goosebumps did make money. Goosebumps was made on a $58 million budget. It made $127.8 million worldwide. So it made a profit. So we're going to have more Goosebumps. Doubled the shits and doubled the diarrhea. Great. But anyway, I don't know what else to say about this movie, except it gets a thumbs down to the pits of hell from me. And yeah, it's definitely on my worst list when I do get around to making that list. Um, it should have just made a horror anthology, because and instead of giving me the same characters and the same stuff I've already seen before and read about, give me new characters. Give the diehard fans something new instead of the same shit. I'm sick of this nostalgia wanking bullshit. I really am. It's fucking lazy. It's like, let's take a property that's familiar and has a fan base, and instead of doing something fresh with it and introducing new audiences to the franchise and doing something new with it and really making it marketable for both new and old audiences at the same time. No, instead, let's just be as lazy as fucking possible and just do this nostalgia wanking shit. We're just gonna wank your nostalgia. We're gonna wank your nostalgia till you come, and you're supposed to be like, oh yes, oh god, I feel so good. That was the best, that was the best hand job I've ever got in Hollywood. No, fuck that shit. I don't want it. Get your nostalgia cum off my face and get your fucking dick out of my fucking area. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. I don't know. Don't want it anymore. I'm sick of it. And yes, they could have done new stories and it still might have sucked. But at least they would have made the attempt to do something different, to do something somewhat unique. I know that there's no such thing as a 100% original idea anymore, but it doesn't mean you can't take an old idea and put a new spin on it. It doesn't mean you can't do that. At least do that. At least I would be like, hey, I didn't like it, but hey, at least you made the effort to do something else with this property instead of the most laziest, half-assed thing imaginable, where you just take old established stories like from Jumanji and concepts and you just throw them into one movie and then just throw in the Goosebumps characters. And you write characters who there's absolutely the bare minimum in terms of character development, and then you call it a day. To me, that's bullshit. I don't want that. I'm tired of this lazy shit, and I'm tired of this lazy shit making money. Because if this lazy shit continues to make money, and people are really pleased with getting their nostalgia wanked, then studios are just going to keep doing it. I see no reason why they should stop, because it seems to make money. So you know what they look for? They look for the bottom line. So if this lazy fucking same old shit, different movie or same title or sequel, reboot, same shit we've already seen before, but with new effects, works out well, they're just gonna keep doing it. And that's why you have Jumanji getting a remake getting greenlit already, and a Labyrinth remake being talked about literally hours, if not, I mean, a few days after David Bowie's death. Because they don't give a shit. They're like, you like your nostalgia wanked, well, here's some more nostalgia wanking. And I don't want it anymore. I draw the line. It ends here. It ends. I'm not putting up with that shit anymore. But anyway, yeah. I don't know what else to say about this movie except fuck Goosebumps. It's a goose dump. And if it's a rated on 5 stars, 1 out of 5 for actually even less than. I hated this movie. I can't think of a fucking thing that I thought was remotely like that one part of the script that I liked with the character of Hannah, but they fucked it up. Um, Maybe some bits of the monsters, but that's uneven because the CGI at times was really bad, like on the werewolf, for example. Which, if you want a werewolf, watch the Monster Squad. Seriously, if you want a good horror teen comedy, watch the Monster Squad. You want a fun movie with for the family, with something that has with an inanimate object that has things that come out of it into the real world and monsters and stuff. Watch Jumanji. You want to watch something Goosebumps related? Watch the TV show or read the books. Don't watch this lazy, half-assed turd. Anyway, yeah, I give it a half a star. There you go. It's as it is as bad as Pixels for me personally. But anyway, thank you for watching my rant on Goosebumps, and I will see you guys later. See ya.